Open Minds Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep, open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, considering all of the hype around the new Jurassic Park/World movie, I figured we should dive into the possibility of the real Lost World, dinosaurs and all, maybe even the true inspiration for the franchise in the first place. And today's guest has written a few books on the topic, and maybe even found the true location. But before we get into this fascinating conversation today, just a couple of quick news and updates. First and foremost, the t-shirt giveaway/survey is still going on if anybody's interested in possibly getting entered in winning a t-shirt of their choice off of the Open Minds Media merch store. All you guys have to do is fill out a quick 10-question survey, and you guys will be entered. And those surveys go towards hopefully helping the show to grow. I feel like I've hit a bit of a glass ceiling lately where the show has been very, very constant with your guys' support, definitely. But I want to keep making sure this show continues to grow. So hopefully with your guys' opinions, we can keep critiquing the show to get it to where it needs to be, but we won't be able to do that again without your guys' opinions. So anything you guys do, I greatly appreciate. And the next bizarre inquiries for anybody that's been catching those live will be happening on August 7th at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over there on the Open Minds Media YouTube channel. And for anybody that popped into the last episode last week, we greatly appreciate it, and hopefully we will also be seeing you guys on that next show. And if anybody has any articles, clips, questions, anything that they would like to submit for that, then make sure you guys get those to me before the next show through social media, email, or any way that you guys choose to get a hold of me. Doesn't matter how, just make sure you guys get them to me, of course. And if you guys are enjoying that show, don't forget to go and check out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. It's almost kind of like the format of that show where we goof around, we have some fun, but we do some deep dives along the way, and we have some guests, of course. So if you guys are into that, into a lot of the topics that we talk about on this show, I definitely think you guys will enjoy that show if you guys aren't already checking it out. And just one last thing before you get into the show, if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys can also call or text the Open Minds Media hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description. And every single thing that I mention and will mention throughout the show is all available in the link tree, which is also available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome back to the show, for now his second appearance after a very, very long time, episode 131 to be exact. Please welcome back to the show, Ben Tejada-Ingram, author, researcher, and anomaly hunter, I guess, if you also want to throw that one in there too, or at least that was the handle you were going by for a while and last time that you were on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me back on, man. It's been a couple of years, I think. And kudos to you for just having one of the coolest shows out there and consistently having very cool and interesting people on. So it's a absolute pleasure and honor to be with here with everyone tonight.
Well, man, I'm glad that you hit me back up because it was a long-awaited conversation. Because I remember last time you were on the show, man, we had a really, really good conversation. We were planning on doing a round 2 at some point, but for whatever reason, time got away from us. And within that time, man, you've been working on new books, you've been researching stuff. So I'm glad that you shot me another message, man, to be able to get you back on, to be able to talk about your newest book. But I guess before we get into that, of course, for anybody that may not be familiar with who you are, what you do, or I guess the couple of books under your belt now, why don't you let them know a little bit about yourself before we get into your new book today, man?
Yeah. So my name is Ben Tejada-Ingram, and you can find me on all the social medias, Anomaly Hunter X, and I am an author, researcher, and with a special focus on cryptozoology. In particular, for the last couple years or so, I've really been researching specifically the idea of lost worlds, because it's kind of like the book Arthur Conan Doyle. If there's some isolated, completely unexplored, uninhabited areas of the world, which there are actually, there's places like that all around the world, places that are so remote, uninhabited, and unexplored. It's those type of places that really you want to go looking if you want to find a creature or any kind of thing out there that could still be undiscovered in the modern world. So I've kind of been going down this research track trying to find places like this, but in particular ones that are associated with really cool lore or legends. And that's kind of what my first book was about. It was about there is a plateau in Venezuela, and it's called the Oregon-ite, and that's where Angel Falls is located. This is the highest waterfall in the world. And what made me interested in it is there's various reports from that part of the world of people seeing what is described as a kind of mini plesiosaurus that kind of lives up there in the rivers and the lakes. And so even though like everyone's heard about Angel Falls, this is a place that's extremely remote. It's isolated, and you can't really get there very easily without taking a helicopter, basically. And so, yeah, I like to call that one the Little Nessie of Venezuela. And yeah, that's kind of what got me started on all this. Is I interviewed some pretty credible people, in my opinion. Jose Miguel Perez Gomez, the great Venezuelan archaeologist. He actually went there not for anything professional, but just out of personal curiosity to research this thing. And he had an incredible sighting and even photographic evidence. And I think that one really is one of the most interesting things, because in recent years it's been proven that these plesiosauruses, they didn't only live in the ocean, they actually lived in freshwater ecosystems. We're talking like little inlets from the ocean, even rivers. And they even, a couple of years ago, they found the first ever fossil evidence of that. So I think when you factor in one other factor is biologists who have gone on this mountain plateau, they did they've studied all the plants, animals that they can find. And it is a fact that I think it's over 30% of all the wildlife living on these isolated table mountains are endemic to these mountains, which means they do not exist anywhere else on Earth. So it's almost like in Venezuela, in particular, Brazil, Guyana, you have over 100 of these mountains. And it's really interesting because most of them are actually unexplored, like completely unexplored. And we know from previous research that there's very unique biodiversity at these places. So yeah, it's really fascinating, and in my opinion, one of the best places to investigate if you're looking for undiscovered animals or you're researching cryptids.
See, that's one of those places too that, like you were saying, it's so hard to get up to that the average person isn't going to be able to just go up there and explore anyway. So it's one of those places that it seems like it's like within grasp, but it's like so hard to actually get up to actually explore. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that Up was inspired by Angel Falls too. Correct?
Oh yeah, that's actually funny. Yeah, Up was completely based on Angel Falls, and they turned the plesiosaurus into a little like bird thing, but it's actually based on that whole story. Including like the villain is based off of another person who lives out there in real life. So yeah, it's all kind of based on a true story. A lot of people don't really know that. Yeah. Yeah, these places, they're you have to be an expert mountain climber to get up on top of one of these things. Like we're talking sheer vertical cliffs on all sides. So yeah, that's kind of why nothing that's up there really ever, well, rarely will venture down. Unless it's some kind of animal that can climb really easily. Yeah.
I mean, even getting up there as a person, like trying to take a helicopter up there, there's not really any like clear spots, so it's kind of hard to land up there. So honestly, like you kind of mentioned, the only way to really be able to get up there is by being able to actually climb or scale this place. And it seems like a lot of our research is side tangent, actually, because honestly, I feel like the two best places to try to find some three, actually, I'm going to throw in three best places to discover some of these cryptids or animals would probably be some of these places like you just mentioned. It's got to be definitely caves and underground dwellings, and then of course the ocean. And I think that some of your research last time we were talking, we got into like Moon-eyed people, and then we got into like Edidorpa, and that actually opened up like a whole other can of worms for a lot of my different research where I was diving into a lot of this underground stuff. So also a special thank you for that.
Oh yeah. That's definitely one of those interesting connections there. Yeah, if you're looking at underground areas, I'll just sorry to get a little bit sidetracked, but I just want to mention something that's come up in my research lately. This isn't to do with my book, but so Catalina Island, like we all know, that's this island off of the coast of California. And a little while ago, someone messaged me and they're like, dude, did you know that people see Bigfoot on this island? Like the BFRO has several like cataloged reports from there. And I was like, whoa, that's really weird. Like how does a Bigfoot population exist on this pretty small island? It doesn't really make very much sense. But what I did discover is, of course, it's off of the coast of Catalina Island that you have a whole bunch of even like military UFO encounters. I think in 2019, there's this incident where Navy battleships were swarmed by UAPs and drones, etc. And so I was like, if there are Bigfoot out on Catalina Island, maybe they live below the surface in cave systems. And so I kind of was researching that angle. And I realized if you look on the map of Bigfoot sightings in California, they all usually, like in Oregon too, of course, in Washington, they follow the big mountain ranges. So if you follow the Sierra Nevada mountain range down in California, it goes almost down to like LA, and then it stops. But if you continue the trajectory, it's not far to get to Catalina Island on the same like direction that the mountains are going. So if you're a Bigfoot, like imagine there's some kind of underground entrance from these mountains to this island, perhaps. And I did uncover a very, very old article. I forget the author who mentioned this, but basically in Catalina Island, the mining history, the mining logs do mention these miners who were just digging, prospecting out there, and they popped into a bigger chamber completely by accident. They just like are going along, and then all of a sudden it opens up, and they're in this extremely large thing. And there should be no previous mining history on this island at this point. We're talking like 1920. And there's a very detailed account and they say they walk into this massive, massive tunnel complex, and it kind of like goes back into the very heart of the island. And they're talking about how this has to be something built in prehistoric times. And there's several other kind of weird stories about people in the mines out there who feel like they're not alone or have scary encounters with various entities, let's say. So that's just something that I was looking into kind of recently that I thinking about writing a book about, but I don't really have much more to go off of at the moment. But that's just another interesting thing.
No, that's
in my opinion, these UFO bases, these Bigfoot sightings, like they're all connected. There has to be some kind of connection.
I mean, even regardless of that, though, you got to assume that these Sasquatch, if they've been around forever, they definitely know the way of the land. And if there's any passages getting into any other open areas, it's like, I'm sure that they're going to be fully aware of it and know about these things. I mean, not to mention like the numerous sightings that people have seen near cave entrances of Sasquatch. And I mean, just trying to guess off of them being, I guess, a little bit more human than what a lot of people like to give them credit for. Like, of course, their first place they're going to look for shelter is going to be within caves and caverns. So, you know, once they've spent like endless years going back and forth between these places, I mean, especially if they end up finding a passage that gets them into some other island, I mean, it definitely seems plausible that they would definitely be using these access points. And I mean, even going beyond that too, I mean, this mining stuff, I mean, this could go back to like the ancient natives, which even just connects even farther in with some of the Native Americans or some of the Sasquatch stuff that they probably knew about these places. I mean, I definitely think that you have something there, man. You should keep digging into that and see if you could find any more other connections that lead into any other islands or any other access points or something, and see if you can unlock some type of like underground cavern system that these Sasquatches are using across California, man.
Well, yeah, thank you. If any of the listeners have anything related to this, please send it my way. I was talking to this one guy who lives on Catalina Island. He's like, dude, I've seen UFOs there like all the time. Like, it's just like a hot spot, I don't know if you've watched Expedition X with Josh Gates, Phil Torres, etc. They film like this massive, massive UFO just slowly descending, and then it like goes into the water. It's crazy. It's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So I do think, in that particular area, there's something really weird going on. And also just a couple, like maybe 50 miles up in Malibu, California, right there on the coast. That's where you have the supposed underwater UFO base. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's a very prominent feature. Google. It's like that big, flat oval right there in the ocean. It looks so weird. It's definitely like a little bit out of place, I think. So, yeah, that's another factor in this. Anyway.
Some type of rift or something coming from the ocean, man.
Something I've been thinking about and want to research a little more. We'll see where it goes. That's about all I have at the moment. So,
say if you have any more that ends up popping up with that, man, you'll have to keep me updated, because I'm always fascinated with these stories like this, and especially if you can find some type of connection between all of it. Because I mean, obviously there is a big connection between all this stuff. It's just a matter of figuring out what exactly it is in that area. But my guess is usually that it has something to do with some type of like rift, or like, I hate using the word portal all the time because everybody overuses that word, but like some type of like interdimensional tear or something like that, that's causing some type of like rift and spillage from somewhere else. Like that's what I think is happening with a lot of these locations, and that's why we keep finding these different triangles everywhere. It's not that they're, it's areas that are caused because of something that's happening on an interdimensional level. That's kind of where I'm thinking it's at.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that, because it's kind of a weird coincidence that you have this Bigfoot activity that tracks to this area, as well as all this UFO activity. Like, I don't really know exactly how that works, but I think you're on the right track. It could be very well be something interdimensional. Yeah.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
Yeah, anyway, back to the book. My new book, if anyone wants to go look it up on Amazon, it's called The Mysteries of Kurupira, and that is spelled Curupira, Kurupira. And so this book, how it all came about for me was about, I would say, over a year ago at this point. One day I received a very, very interesting message from one of my followers online that kind of kicked off this whole investigation. And so I'm just going to read the message right now. So it said, "Hello, Ben. So, first of all, I have read your book about Little Nessie, and I loved it. Congratulations for the awesome book. Do you know that apparently there's another plateau with dinosaurs in South America? This tepoi is called Kurupira by the natives, and it's believed that it's home to 3 dinosaurs: the Stoa, a Carnotaurus; the Suwa, a sauropod; and the Washouriwe, which would be a pterodactyl." And he says, "I will leave this link here," and he sends a link. And then he says, "I am Brazilian, but I have never heard of this tepoi or the creatures in it. And seeing as how you are a good researcher, I thought if you can discover more things about it, maybe you can contact Perez Gomez again and see if he knows anything about it. Read the link to know everything about it. All the best, João Marcos." I'll leave his last name out for now. But anyway, I got that message and immediately I was like, holy crap. Like this is really weird because I have been studying this part of the world, these plateaus, for a very, very long time. And I don't think I've ever heard of another one with more dinosaurs, not to mention 3 more dinosaurs. But then I did remember that there's hundreds of these things. So it is kind of possible that there's one out there that that's just so undocumented that people haven't really taken the time to explore it. So I click on the link he sent me, and it takes me to the blog of the very renowned cryptozoologist, Dr. Carl Schuker, who wrote an article about this on his blog. And in his article, it opens up with a very interesting and strange statement, which basically says, when the famous novelist Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote his book, The Lost World, he based everything in this book off of this one specific plateau called Kurupira, not on any of the other ones. And I thought that was a very weird thing to say because I had always heard that Arthur Conan Doyle based it all on the famous ones. We're talking the Iron Tepoi, Mount Roraima. Those are what you think. But no, that's completely wrong according to Carl Schuker. So I read this article, and it goes on to say that everything we know about this Kurupira, it all comes from the work of a very obscure Czechoslovakian cryptozoologist named Jaroslav Mores. And Jaroslav Mores was the one who actually discovered the connections of this place. And in 1978, he actually went on an expedition there himself. And he documented many, many interesting things concerning the unknown phenomena, the cryptids, etc. And basically, he says, by the end of reading this article, it fails to kind of mention anything about where this plateau is. And so I start to read some of the comments, and then I start looking online, and it becomes very, very apparent very fast that no one out there is able to give you a good answer. Where is Kurupira? It seems to be non-existent, and there's even several people commenting online who say, "Oh, this is just a hoax. Yaroslav Mores must have made this all up because no one can find anything about this place or any of these supposed cryptids." And Carl Schuker, he goes on to respond to one of these comments, and he says, um, according to Yaroslav Mores, Kurupira was actually erased from every single map in existence. It used to exist on maps until around the year 1950 or 60, and then it was gone. And that's the real reason why no one can find it anymore. And so, yeah, it's very weird and very mysterious. So I kind of said to myself, this doesn't make any sense. Either this place exists, it's real, or it's not. It's a hoax. It's all made up. And so I kind of was like, I'm going to make it my goal and my mission to find out where it is exactly and to see if I can vindicate or find any more sources concerning any of these various cryptids or legends or stories. And so that's basically what started out and ended up being my new book. And yeah, that's basically what my book is all about. So I apologize for going off for so long.
No, you're good. You got me sitting here and I'm fascinated. I just want to keep hearing more about it, man. I was sitting here thinking about like reasons why they'd possibly be trying to cover this place up. And I don't know. I'm assuming that one of the best explanations could be if there is some type of place where there's this preserved prehistoric period or time period. Like it's one of those things that maybe you just want to destroy from maps so that people don't go and alter it. Like maybe it's one of those things that you kind of just keep secluded and over time it eventually becomes forgotten about. But, you know, when it comes to the probability of some place like this existing, like you mentioned in the beginning, like there's so many of these plateaus that exist everywhere in South America that it's just like, who knows what could potentially be on any of these. I mean, we're having enough trouble just trying to find some of these ancient civilizations that are in the middle of the jungle, let alone something that's on top of a plateau in the middle of the jungle. So I don't know. I feel like there's obviously a lot of validity to it, and I'd love to kind of see where your research went with this and how much validity you may have found with this possible location. But when it comes to some of this stuff where people are talking about it in books from like the early 1900s, though, I always get into this whole idea that it might have like this mix of this altering of what knowledge was around the time of like the world fairs and everything, that it seemed like people were just like aware of things and all of a sudden there's this shift and all of a sudden, oh, that never existed. We knew nothing about that. It's not on maps. What are you talking about? It's like everybody just got amnesia after a certain point with a lot of this weird anomalous stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, dude, I'm going to skip around a little bit, but I will tell you straight up, though, that Yaroslav Mores was correct about almost everything he said regarding this area. And I was actually able to find it by the original source maps of it. Because, I did actually end up finding an archive of very, very old maps. And this is an online archive called the David Rumsey Archive. And you can actually, it's really cool. You can search by text. So when you write the word Kurupira, I eventually, you have to change the K to a C. But when you call it by the C variation, there are over 30 historical maps, all from pre-1950s, exactly like he said, that show this area in exactly the correct location too, which is very important because there's been a lot of hypothetical and people talking about where they think it is, and a lot of them are kind of wrong. All of the source maps basically are correct about it, and I'll tell you where I was able to pinpoint where this place is. It's on the border of Brazil and Venezuela, and then it intersects the states of Amazonas and Roraima. And that's very significant. And another clue. So what I had to do is I had to get this book by Yaroslav Mores, Kurupira, Sinister Secret. And I had to translate the book. And then I had to find all of the clues that may point to a specific area. And one of the other clues was this area is actually the source of the Orinoco, the Cachamani, the Demini River, another river that I am not remembering right now, but it's the source of all these rivers. It's right on this confluence of borders. And in about the year 1950, they changed the name to Cerro Delgado Chalbad. And that was because the Venezuelan dictator, Carlos Chalbad, he sent an expedition to find the source of the Orinoco. And that was probably one of the first times in documented history that anyone from the outside world went to this place. But I'm going to still call it Kurupira because, it's actually been renamed a couple other names on the Venezuelan side, the Brazilian side. They all have different names for it. But another thing that is very, very interesting that I was definitely able to vindicate for Yaroslav Mores is the fact that this place, like when you look at it on Google Earth, there are this line of cliffs. It is a plateau. It kind of doesn't extend around the whole way, but you can see that the way that Yaroslav Mores and many and other people saw, all they could see from their vantage point would be this straight up huge line of cliffs. And it is on Google Earth, and I have several images of it in my book. But what's really interesting is another thing he said about how in modern times, not only did they change the name, it's completely inaccessible and locked down from the outside world, this area. Not just the mountain, but hundreds of miles surrounding this mountain. You cannot enter there, and you should not enter there. I'm going to say a little disclaimer. I did ask Jose Miguel Perez Gomez about this, and he's like, Ben, even if you could get the permits to go here, do not go here. You're going to die. Like, you will be killed, because this is an area that has a lot of criminal activity from illegal gold mining. So various gangs, cartels, and even just small independent groups of guys go into this area and a lot of other areas in South America. And they're very, very dangerous because they will protect their gold finds with force. They are very destructive in the sense that they basically genocide the tribes who are living there. And you basically do not want to enter there for that reason. Another reason is on the Brazilian side of the Kurupira area, let's call it, it's a protected reserve. And it's actually locked down by the military. Like, they will shoot down your plane if any plane flies into this airspace. It's a little strange, though, because usually the government of Brazil doesn't really care too much about protecting these isolated tribes. But in this instance, it seems like they're really taking it seriously. And then on the Venezuelan side, it's a national park. But what's really weird is the Venezuelan government decided to put this entire national park on military lockdown. So you cannot enter this vast area that's basically in the most remote part of the Amazon without special permits from the Venezuelan government.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. But in the meantime, don't forget to follow Inquiries of Our Reality on Instagram and Facebook for show updates and the weekly live schedules. And don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok, and tap that bell icon while you're there to get notified anytime we happen to go live. And if you'd like to join the discussion with like-minded individuals, become a member of the OMM Discord community today. All of those links are available off the link tree in the show description. And now back to the show.
A lot of people did, various people did say Yaroslav Mores was crazy and he made this up. But it's true because I found in my book my exclusive source that kind of had never been heard before publicly, was a doctor from Venezuela. His name is Dr. Carlos Rodriguez. And I interviewed this doctor, and he told me that during his residency, part of his thing was to go to these very, very remote, isolated tribes in the jungle and provide the medical necessities, inoculations, whatever needs to be done. And so as part of his duties, he went to what they call Cerro Delgado Chalbad, which I like to call Kurupira, of course. And apparently right at this area, to this day, there's still this very pretty much uncontacted tribe living out there. And of course, my question was, did they talk about the Sua, the Washarue, any of the various dinosaur cryptids that have been reported? And while the doctor said he didn't remember the names of any of these creatures, they did tell him some interesting stories about a creature or creatures that were so large that they would knock down trees in the jungle and just leave this path of destruction where they went, because they actually made the comparison and said these things are whales, which was really weird and interesting. I'm like, why would this tribe who's never even seen a whale say that they have whales in the jungle? And the only reason is because you might be talking about something that's so large. And let's just remember that in the Amazon rainforest, basically the largest creature you have is a tapir. There's not anything larger really than a tapir, which is maybe the size of a horse. Hippopotamus, rhinoceroses, all the large megafauna, those all live in Africa. So it's very interesting that this doctor did tell me about these reported encounters. So yes, that was one of my main vindications. Yeah.
That was going to be my next big question, was if there was any encounters or sightings that you heard coming out of this area. Because like you had kind of mentioned, it's one of those areas that it's kind of impossible to get information from, because, I mean, either one, you have these uncontacted tribes, which obviously only certain people have access to them, and you could have to be able to translate to hear these stories. Then on the flip side, you have the criminals in the area. So it's not like you can go up to these people that are minors and they're not going to be sharing like typical minor type stories, because they're going to give away their location. So it's like full access from that completely blocked off, on top of the military aspect blocked off. Like, it either one seems like there is something weird to this area, or on the flip side of it, they're saying that it's so dangerous that they just can't let people into this area. But I mean, it seems like the Amazon is just one of those places where they're like, all right, if you want to go die in there, have fun, have at it. So why does it seem like they're particularly secluding this place under military action? Like, you know, obviously it seems like art is inspired by things in real life. So, I mean, you know, I keep going back to this like Jurassic Park type story that, you know, maybe at some point somebody was trying to make money off of this, and then they realized very quickly that that's not a very good idea. So rather than let somebody else try to come and make that mistake, they kind of just completely blocked off the area. But I guess kind of extending onto that, did you figure out when exactly that it seemed like this like military action, everything came into the area? Like, was it an open area that everybody kind of just free versed for a while, and then all of a sudden there was just one day they kind of blocked everything off? Or did you kind of figure out any information on that?
Yeah, I think I would say it was around the 1980s. This was really when the big gold rush really picked up. Like, it started in the 70s, but yeah, it was during the 80s. Like, there are various campaigns, like government has launched all these campaigns. Like they'll just literally send their bombers over this area and just drop bombs on the miners. Like it's literally like you could say this even continues till this day. It's a war zone out there. And, it's really weird. Don't let me forget to talk about it because, yeah, the whole Jurassic Park hypothesis, that could be one explanation for why this area is on just total lockdown. But there are several other connections with various alien type beings or perhaps interdimensional portals. So don't let me forget. I will get to that.
Oh no, I was going to hope that you'd get to that because I was hoping to bring up the Pervian face peelers at some point. So,
if you don't mind, I would like to go back just a little bit to give you just a little more perspective on the whole mystery. So, really, my book is a it's an indirect follow up to the work of Yaroslav Mores, the great cryptozoologist. And he is now deceased. So, it's a little unfortunate. I can never ask him any questions, but
at least you can pick up the torch and hopefully carry it on.
Mores was academic. I'm hoping so. Definitely, yeah. So Yaroslav Mores wrote a bunch of books. He was a academic, though. He discovered several species of beetle, some of the largest beetles in the world. Like he would go to all these crazy remote places and just look for bugs is what he did. He published scientific articles. So to me, that speaks to someone with this academic reputation. They're not the type of person who's going to go make up wild, untrue stories. And so basically, what happened to him was his day job, let's say, was working for Czechoslovakian Airlines. And part of his job, he would go to all these countries around the world and negotiate their airlines, their airports to open new destinations for Czech Airlines. And so it was around the 1960s at some point that he found himself in Brazil, in the city of Manaus, Brazil. And he's one night he's out of a bar, and some guys are just telling stories, kind of just telling some tall tales. Excuse me. And there is this one older gentleman who has an eye patch on, who says that he's a backwoods fur trapper. He goes out in the Amazon jungle to catch, all sorts of animals and bring back their pelts. And this guy tells a really, really interesting story to him. And so he says he's just the fur trapper. He's way, way out there in the middle of nowhere, checking on his traps. And he, by chance, runs into a stranger, a complete stranger. And this stranger is in military garb, and he's a Venezuelan. And this guy, he's terrified. And so the fur trapper tries to, help him out and, tell him where he is and give him some rations, etc. And this Venezuelan guy, he says he has a very strange story to tell. He says that he initially was with a group of about 10 other guys who were all defecting from the dictator government. They're all fleeing the country. They're quitting the army. They're fleeing into Brazil to have a better life, basically. And so they're right about at the border. And his whole group of 10 guys, they make camp on this mountain. And the leader, because they're still under military command, the leader says, you go up and scout ahead the terrain while the rest of us make camp. Go look and see where these rivers go and then come back. And it's like, okay, he goes out, he does his scouting of the terrain, and he comes back. And when he gets back to camp, he comes across a horrific scene. He sees that all 10 guys he was with seem to all have dropped dead for no reason whatsoever. It's almost as if they were all fleeing from something, like a bomb went off, but there's absolutely no discernible sign of any kind of physical injury on any of them. And it's very, very shocking and very weird that everyone just seemed to have dropped dead for no reason. So this guy, the scout, he just runs for it. At that point, he runs off the mountain, and he's out there for a couple days until he runs into our fur trapper. And the fur trapper asks him, but he already knows, but he does ask him anyway, where did you come from? Which mountain did this happen on? And he points in the direction. And the fur trapper says, you were on Kurupira. Everyone from Brazil knows not to go to Kurupira. We all avoid this area at all costs. And even the native tribes, the Yanomami tribe, the Weka tribe, even though this is their territory, they will all tell you, do not go here. This is where the demon of the rainforest lives. People will drop dead. And so this is kind of a confirmation to him of the legends. And so this is the story that's told in the bar to Yaroslav Mores. And Yaroslav Mores, he's thinking about this story, and it's a little strange. It kind of seems like a tall tale. But he's wondering, where do I know this word from Kurupira? Where have I heard this before? And eventually he realizes that word crops up a couple times in the great novel The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle, which was written in 1912. And so he goes back and he rereads The Lost World. And in the very opening chapter of this novel is basically about a plateau in South America with a whole bunch of prehistoric creatures that are surviving there, and the expedition and adventures to get there and come back. And in the very opening chapter of The Lost World, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle writes that the protagonist of the novel heard about this place with the dinosaurs. He saw it in a journal of a dead traveler. And he says to himself, from which way did this traveler come? And he says, I could guess it myself. I don't even need to ask because it is in the direction of the Kurupira. All of the tribes, all of the Rivertime tribes, they all agree on where the Kurupira lives. It has a specific home in the forest. And if you are to actually go and look up the word Kurupira, what that actually usually means and comes up, the results, is a mythological Brazilian entity that's sometimes depicted as kind of a furry humanoid short thing that is the protector of the forest. Some people do have a little more negative view of it, and they view it as the demon of the forest. And my friend João Marcos, who helped me, who sent me the message and helped me research the book, this didn't actually make it into the book, but we found another reference about this Kurupira dating back all the way to the 1500s. And in that reference in a book about it, the European explorers said that several members of their expedition party were ambushed and killed by the Kurupira, but the native tribes out there, they said, "Oh, the Kurupira, we go to the top of the tallest mountain. We have a secret path, and that's where we leave the offerings to it." And so I kind of thought that was a very significant thing because that's another reference to the Kurupira and the mountain. And you have to understand that nowhere in Wikipedia, nowhere on the internet, really, it says anything about the location of Kurupira. It only talks about the being. But what most people, almost everyone, doesn't understand is that Kurupira is both this entity and it is this specific location in the Amazon rainforest where this entity lives. The supreme demonic creature, elemental spirit, whatever you want to think of it as, it has a home, and its home is the mountain of Kurupira.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
Anyway, back to Yaroslav Mores. He basically figured all of this out before anyone, and he became completely obsessed with this place. And he made it his kind of like life mission to organize an expedition. And he did organize an expedition in 1978 before it was on complete lockdown. And he went there and he basically he documented many of these reports of the supposed cryptids. And while he didn't particularly have a close encounter, he heard the stories, he collected the information. He very nearly almost died because we're talking the 1970s going on an expedition in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Very dangerous thing to do. But it was later on in the year 2000. Actually, I don't remember the years. The year 2000, I want to say, that he met a prospector named Reginald Riggs. That was actually a fake name because this guy didn't want to give up his real name. And this prospector told him that he had lived many, many years in the Amazon rainforest, many very odd, strange jobs as a trader, etc., orchid hunter. Eventually, tragedy befell this prospector. He lost everything, and he kind of fell into a life of crime. And he teamed up with some of these illegal gold miners called Garimpiros. And for decade at least, he was part of a crew, and they were out there all over mining for gold. And eventually, the crew disbanded, and this guy, he decided to go to the one place he had never been in the rainforest, which was Kurupira, because everyone was so superstitious, they always avoided it. And this prospector, Reginald Riggs, he immediately says he strikes it rich when he goes there. And he's set for life almost immediately. He just finds so much gold. And so then he decides, I actually kind of like it out here. There's no one here. It's very, very much a secluded area. So he decides, I'm going to take my savings. I'm going to build a cabin right by the mountain of Kurupira. And that's what he does. He actually lives there for a very, very long time. And it's this guy, Reginald Riggs, who has several eyewitness encounters with some cryptids that are absolutely astounding, in my opinion. So, I want to, if it's okay, tell you about that before we get into the aliens.
Oh, absolutely! You let it up that far, you got to get into it, man.
Excuse me. Okay, so if you look at my book, the cover of the book is a dinosaur, of course, and the information that we have about the cryptids, the dinosaurs, it comes from the Reginald Riggs diary, which Yaroslav Mores got his permission to publish it, basically, to just take everything in there and tell it to the world. And Reginald Riggs. So he's out there in the Amazon rainforest, living in the foothills of Kurupira in a cabin. And one day he comes across a member of the Weka tribe, which is a subgroup of the Yanomami tribe. These guys are the ones whose territory you're in. And they're also renowned to be the most deadly, fearsome warriors in all of the Amazon rainforest. You do not want to mess with this tribe. You do not want to go up against them, basically. But it's really strange because none of the tribe actually goes to Kurupira. They are all themselves terrified, completely terrified to go there. So they leave Reginald Riggs alone for the most part, except one day he comes across a member of the tribe who's another kind of outcast from the tribe who's on his own. And this guy has been bitten by a snake. And Reginald Riggs has anti-venom. So he ends up saving the Weka warrior's life with his anti-venom. And eventually, the warrior, his name is Ritua. Eventually, since they're both these outcasts from civilization and the tribe, they become really good friends. And Ritua tells Reginald Riggs about some very strange creatures his tribe knows about. One of them is called the Stoa. And it's really interesting because the Stoa is also another word that comes up in The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle. And a lot of people take that as a little bit of a sign of a hoax or what have you, because it almost seems impossible that Arthur Conan Doyle had this exact knowledge and name of the creature that this isolated tribe talks about. But what people don't realize is that Arthur Conan Doyle had several meetings with the esteemed explorer Percy Fawcett. And Percy Fawcett was the guy who, if you've ever seen the movie, The Lost City of Z, he was another one of these Amazonian explorers who was completely obsessed with finding this lost civilization in the Amazon. And Percy Fawcett had spent years, more than probably any other person, mounting these expeditions into the Amazon to find the lost civilization. And so Arthur Conan Doyle met with Percy Fawcett, actually, and basically questioned him to get specific insider information pertaining to his idea for the novel, The Lost World. And it's in this meeting that I am almost 99% sure that Percy Fawcett told Arthur Conan Doyle about the Stoa, about Kurupira. And a lot of people will say, oh, Percy Fawcett never made it that far north. And to that, I would say he probably didn't make it that far north, but he's nonetheless heard the legends. He heard the information from other people. He didn't actually have to go there himself. Percy Fawcett, what he would do, he would go to every single tribe, every village, and he would collect information. He would want to hear all their stories. He was looking for anything about the lost city of Z. And he did hear about Kurupira and the very strange, terrifying creatures that live there as well. And Percy Fawcett, he must have told Arthur Conan Doyle, you can use my information, my knowledge, but do not tell anyone where this is. Do not clue anyone into the fact that this is actually a real thing, because I think that Percy Fawcett wanted to discover it. He wanted to take the credit, all the glory of all this himself. But nonetheless, Arthur Conan Doyle basically encoded all this information in the novel. It's even like all kind of spelled out in the journey, the various landmarks, the various. There's even a map that is shown in the book. That once you realize where this map is, it's a perfect match to get to Kurupira, starting from the starting point they choose. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing that people don't realize about Arthur Conan Doyle. But anyway, back to Ritua and Reginald Riggs, the hermit, basically, who's living at his cabin. He hears about the cryptid called the Stoa, which is described as a large alligator that walks bipedally. And this thing, the tribe, the Waka tribe, they know about it because there's been several clashes with it. And it has such thick armored scales that their best warriors, their spears, their arrows almost kind of have no effect on it. And there has been incidents where these creatures, these stoas, have killed people before. So Yaroslav Marest, he remembers on his own personal expedition, they hired guides of the Yanomami tribe who talked about the Stoa too, who warned them about the Stoa. And he said these guys didn't really have the clearest picture of what it was, but it was something they were all very, very scared of encountering, basically. And so Reginald Riggs, he's living out there, and one day he's out minding his own business, and he looks up and he hears a screech in the air. And this is a screech that's unlike any bird, it's unlike any sound he's ever heard. And he looks up and he sees three humongous creatures soaring overhead. And he very distinctly has the impression that they are not birds, they are reptiles. And he calls them bird lizards. And he makes a drawing of them in his diary. And they basically swoop overhead very fast, and then they fly up to Kurupira, and they're gone. Just like that. It happens so fast, actually, that he kind of is questioning his sanity, whether or not he hallucinated this, because it's so kind of like strange and unbelievable. And then when he meets his friend Ritua kind of tells him, "Oh, you saw a Washo Ryley. Those are what my tribe refers to as, it translates to the father of all vampire bats. They're these strange human creatures who, they're not bats, though. They're more reptilian, and they fly overhead. We see them from time to time. That's what it was he saw." And so Reginald Riggs says, "Okay, so I'm not crazy. I saw something strange." And then he kind of forgets about it. And I want to say like 4 or 5 years later, like a significant amount of time goes by between that encounter and his second encounter. But his second encounter occurs many years later. He is out once again at his cabin outside, minding his own business, and he hears the sound again. He hears the screech, and he immediately knows what it is. So this time he has the presence of mind to go back and grab his rifle, his hunting rifle. And so he hears the screech, and he stealthily tracks it through the jungle. And finally he's right up at it, and he peers through the bushes, and he sees this gigantic creature perched on a large boulder. And he knows immediately this is the same thing I saw before. He calls it a bird lizard, but he gives a very, very detailed description. It is humongous. It has a large beak. It has a very big crest on the back of its head. It has these very large, almost leathery wings. But this isn't a bat. This thing is covered in scales. It's what we would think of as a pterodactyl, as crazy as that sounds. But so Reginald Riggs, there's this moment in his diary where he suddenly realizes what he's seeing, something that should be extinct for millions of years. And he realizes, oh my God, I have my rifle. If I were to take the shot right now and bring it back to civilization, this would be the biggest discovery of all time. This would be sensational headlines around the world. I would be famous beyond my wildest dreams. And so he's kind of like looking at this thing, thinking, oh my God, if I don't get the kill shot right now, I could just make it mad. It's very, very large, and there's no telling how dangerous this thing could be. And so he does realize, oh my, even if I do kill it with my rifle, what am I going to do with this enormous body out in the middle of the jungle? This thing will decay. Like, the only thing you could do would be to cut off the head and bring the head back. And even so, doing so, like, the head of this thing would be bigger than your torso. It would be very, very difficult to drag this head of a pterodactyl back through the jungle. So Reginald Riggs, he decides just to watch and observe. And eventually the thing is screeching. Another one comes in, and they both take to the air. They both start circling each other midair, and they both dive in at the same time and clash together in a very hostile, violent way. And it seems like they're having some kind of battle. And the last second, they break apart before they hit the ground. And it goes on for some time, this really strange aerial battle between these two creatures.
That sounds
And
like
eventually,
the breeding of like eagles, for example. Have you ever seen that when eagles breed? That or the one they're looking for a mate, that they'll do this thing where they'll clash up in the sky and lock talons, and then they'll ride it all the way to the ground and drop at the last second. Like, it almost kind of sounds like a mating ritual.
Well, it could have been. Yeah, it could have been that. According to Reginald Riggs, he thought that they were fighting. I don't know why he made that determination, but he makes the comparison. He's like, this is like watching a old World War I movie where you're watching an aerial dogfight, because that's kind of how big these things are. They're like the size of a plane. And eventually they kind of get tired of fighting or whatever they were doing, and they kind of fly off. And that's the end of it. But
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. But if you don't like hearing the ads, then I have a solution for you. You can get ad-free and early access to this show and Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $2 a month. That's less than a bag of chips, and it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in bonus content, merch store discounts, premium video versions of the show, along with some other perks, then you guys can become a member of the OMM family today. Or you guys can give it a try with a 7-day free trial. The link for that is available down in the show notes. Now let's get back into it.
yeah, Reginald Riggs, he's very like emphatic about this experience, this encounter. And, you know, when I read this, it sounds a little bit fantastical. Like, this is a pretty crazy thing, but you have to take into account the area we're talking about. No one lives for hundreds of miles except for the native tribes. And this area, it's kind of like Kurupira, this mountain. There's more mountains behind it. It's a highland area. And I was consulting a wildlife biologist. I forget his name currently, but he runs a nonprofit company out of Venezuela to study the wildlife of these tepois. And I showed this area to him on a map, and he's like, dude, this is the perfect area for a large airborne-based mega predator to kind of assert complete control, because these areas, they're very rugged and mountainous, and it's very difficult for land-based creatures to survive. So he's like, if you're talking bats, for example, this could be the place for a giant bat to exist. If we're gonna say that it's a bat, like some kind of giant bat, like this place, these tepois, these mountains are completely riddled with caves. They're pretty much, they have a lot of documented caves. So it does kind of make sense that this could be the ideal habitat for a creature like this to exist. And let's not also forget that other factor in which in Brazil, other parts of Brazil, they have found the best pterodactyl fossils that exist anywhere on Earth. These, we're not talking about fragmentary fossils. Excuse me. In Brazil, they found the complete thing, like a bunch of them. So yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. I think there is something out there, and sometimes I wonder if it's a giant bat, like the Weka, their word, the Washa Ryley. That means a giant bat, but could it be something else? I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, just to throw in some
I think it
possible
has
theories.
to be something, though.
Throwing some possible theories on this whole place and idea. I mean, you're already talking about like caverns and everything, and obviously you have this giant plateau that's on the top of this like mountainous area, but like theoretically speaking, you know, if something like this could have existed from the prehistoric age, I mean, you definitely see examples of things that haven't changed or really adapted or done really much as far as like evolving past the prehistoric age. I mean, you see this with crocodiles, with alligators, for example, but just trying to think of like a reason why this could possibly be existing in this area. I mean, either one, you know, there was something special about this particular area where maybe it wasn't affected by whatever the great cataclysms were, or on the other side of it, again, bringing back into that cave idea, you know, who knows how far down this could go? Who knows what potential caves this could connect into? What we could be seeing on the top of this plateau may not be things that are existing on this plateau, but rather things that are wandering out from somewhere else. There could be some type of like giant pocket cave that's existing in this area that these things may have existed through, you know, whatever this cataclysm was. And what we're seeing that's coming up to this area, and which is why it seems so scattered, is because they're coming up out of this. I mean, I know in Indonesia, for example, they have these caves that are so vast that they have their own ecosystems. They have their own weather systems inside of these things. I don't know if any of these have been documented in South America, but I mean, it definitely seems like it could be plausible for this area. And maybe if it isn't existing in the same way now, you know, maybe it's a place that existed like this in the past where these species were able to exist for a while, and now they are, whatever is left, you know, is out on this plateau area. But I mean, I definitely think these cave systems could have a big portion to do with, you know, some of the potential on why these things are still existing in this area.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So regarding Kurupira specifically, we know it's the source of 4 major rivers, including the Orinoco, which is the largest river in all of Venezuela. So you got to think has to be underground aquifers, if you will, something underground where all this water could be coming from, as well as that Yaroslav Mares, on his expedition, he found a huge cave. And Reginald Riggs has several stories of him exploring some of these caves. So I really like that hypothesis, because it kind of like reminds me of a King Kong Skull Island thing where all these creatures are coming from the inner earth, you know. But one thing that is a real world example is a couple of years ago in what's called the Alto Orinoco region of Venezuela, which is actually directly adjacent to Kurupira. the Kurupira zone, if you will, not the one mountain, but the, let's say, 50-mile radius. Right to the northwest of there, you got the Alto Orinoco Basin, which is where the Orinoco River goes, and there's tributaries and what have you. But yeah, I think it was last year they discovered the biggest snake in the world, and it lives right there. This is a new subspecies of anaconda called the green anaconda. And they did some DNA testing, and they're like, this is actually a complete genetically different species. And it was actually Will Smith was doing some kind of like adventure documentary. And that's when they found, like, they were talking to the tribes, and the tribes told them about where these giant snakes live. And they went and they found one that was absolutely crazy. Like, I don't remember how many feet. I want to say around 25 feet, something like that. Like, this thing was absolutely the biggest snake ever filmed or recorded or documented. And what's really even more interesting is if you read The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle, guess what they talk about in The Lost World? It's not only dinosaurs. They also talk about giant anacondas. How did he know that those were there? I mean, that could have been a lucky guess. It is kind of interesting that he was completely correct about that one too.
Dude, there's a lot of weirdness with some of these old books too, because I mean, this could even potentially kind of connect in with some of what's the name? Journey to the Center of the Earth. You know, the whole concept about there being these giant caverns that exist, that there's still these prehistoric dinosaurs that exist in. I mean, I don't know, man. You dive into some of these old authors, and I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of weirdness to them. Like, even just down to, like, maps, for example. Like, bringing back up the Edidorpa concept that we were talking about earlier. Like, there's a map in that book that leads to an exact spot that supposedly lines up with where this location was, down to the point where Manly P. Hall is listening to him do a lecture, and there was somebody in the early 1900s that went and checked out this area that the map was set up for in Edidorpa, and they supposedly got to, as it's referenced in the book, the last spot of light before they had to turn back because their equipment wasn't good enough to go any farther. Like, I don't know, man. There's just a lot of validity to some of these old researchers. Like, I feel like they try to hide research within books, maybe for the sake of people believing that the claims are too outrageous, or maybe it's being able to stick around through time, because if you gear it as fiction, then if something gets disproven in it, then it doesn't just instantly get cast to the side. But I don't know, there's just something weird with these old writers and the way that they used to just lay information within their books.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. When you think about Arthur Conan Doyle specifically, we all know him most famous from Sherlock Holmes. And this was someone, this author, he loved mysteries. He loved secret ciphers. And so it does kind of make a lot of sense to me that he would have really loved the opportunity to encode things, like hidden things, in a lot of his books. And specifically, The Lost World, another really interesting thing he put in there was when they go to the Lost World, there's what he calls a race of anthropoid ape men, kind of like these Bigfoot type things. But here they're called Doda in the Lost World. They have a name. And when you go to Venezuela and you're researching a cryptid called the Mapinguari in Brazil, which is now actually theorized. Some people thought it was more of a bipedal ape, Bigfoot-ish thing. The more recent theory is it's some kind of giant ground sloth, which I like that theory a lot. But then you go over the border to Venezuela, and the tribes there, they talk about the exact same thing, but it's called the Didi, D-I-D-I. And we know from previous examples that Arthur Conan Doyle mentions the Kurupira, but he slightly alters the spelling to Kurupiri. So it appears to me that he did the same thing with the Didi of Venezuela. he renamed it the Doda, but we're still talking the same word, the vowel difference. So that's a very clear and direct thing he threw in there that is undoubtedly inspired by this real cryptid out there. So Arthur Conan Doyle, he made it blatantly obvious, in my opinion. Once you kind of understand all this, there's no doubt. Like, he even put a map, and what he says, the map is neither or scale, and it shows the starting location, Manaus, Brazil. It shows the starting, and then the unnamed tributary, which Yaroslav Mores figures out what tributary it is. It's the Demini River. And so when you're talking about a map that's not oriented, that just means it's not aligned to true north. But once you flip it like 45 degrees, it's an exact match of the Demini River. And it leads to Kurupira, exactly. And what is something I put in my book, which I analyze the distances. So Arthur Conan Doyle, he talks about the quote unquote complete fictional book, The Journey Undertaken. He gives a distinct distance of miles to every single landmark. And when you tally the total from leaving the main Amazon River to get to the Lost World, aka Kurupira, it's about 250 to 280 miles, give or take. And when you plot the distance from the Amazon River following the Demini River to Kurupira, it's exactly like 270 miles. So that's the scale. We know the scale, and once we orient it, it's a perfect match, not only in terms of the route it takes, but the distances involved. So, it's pretty cool. If you want to see what I'm talking about, I lay this all out in my book here. So, yeah.
I actually brought up a PDF of the Lost World on another screen, and I was looking for that map, and I'm pretty sure I found the map while you were talking about it. So, for anybody that wants to look it up, you can definitely find PDF copies too of the Lost World, and you can find the map from the exact book too if anybody wanted to check it out. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave. So, getting into the last little bit here, as I know that you said you had about an hour and a half or so. So, before we run out of time, we got to get to some of these conspiracies that you were talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So the last thing about all this is something that I was looking into, and Yaroslav Mores actually gave me the idea because he was the one who's like, there has to be something more going on here than just dinosaurs. And he was kind of looking into this idea of secret military bases, UFOs, alien activity, co-divergent evolution of dinosaurs if they became humanoid, what that would look like. And one thing that crops up in his book several times is when he went on his expedition to Kurupira, his nearest waypoint was a very, very remote missionary settlement called Porto da Maloca, the Port of Evil, which was named because people dropped dead because it was so close to Kurupira. And this place, Porto da Maloca, still exists on maps for some reason, but it's long gone. It's destroyed. No one is there anymore. But when Yaroslav Mores went there, he talked to a very, very chatty missionary, and you could kind of, like, he brought his tape recorder and recorded the whole conversations and gave the transcript. You can tell this missionary was kind of going a little stir crazy out there because he was going on and on and on about all the cryptids, etc. And one thing the missionary says is that according to the Yanomami, the tribes that live there. There is a couple things that he regarded as a tall tale, but one of them was called the Rakahashi. And the Rakahashi are the gold miners who are out there too, call them the demons of the green hell. And what these things are, they're described as being pretty tall, humanoid in shape, very, very slender, very kind of emaciated and skinny, but they have very, very long, shallow eyes, pitch black eyes, no pupil, nothing on their face except for a mouth and a slit for a nose. And then going down, they're kind of like scaly, wrinkled skin. And they have on their hands, they have 4 fingers and 3 toes. And that's the like kind of, it's only a paragraph description of this. And the missionary is like, oh, this is just the Yanomami boogeyman. I don't think they're real, but Yaroslav Mores nonetheless records this. And when you're reading this, it's, of course, when you're picturing it, it's a gray alien, right? It sounds like a gray alien, except it's tall. For some reason, it's a tall one. But I was like, okay, I'm going to research this more because it's a little bit weird. And the only other time the Rakahashi come up in Yaroslav Mores's work is Reginald Riggs claims that according to a Yanomami or Weka shaman he meets, this shaman can see anything, like can remote view distant areas. And this shaman says the Rakahashi, they live in Kurupira, the mountain Kurupira. That is their home. They are swarming this place like insects. And that's the real reason why people are dying, dropping dead. And so, yeah, I thought that was a little bit interesting. So what I did is I was like, I'm going to translate this word because there's no translation. And so I eventually cracked it. It's 2 words in one. The word Raka means life force energy. And the word Hashi is a verb, and it means to make dry. It means basically if there's a liquid, it's to make it dry and to disappear. So when you think about what this word Rakahashi means, it means basically a drinker of the soul. Or you could think of it as some kind of like vampiric entity. But I kind of like to translate it as a soul drinker, more or less. And yeah, that's when I realized that. It's pretty terrifying to think about, but it's also pretty interesting that specifically when you're talking about gray aliens, there's a lot of people in the UFO world who kind of speak about their theories about the gray aliens as being very, very similar in the fact that, for example, Bob Lazar would say that the Greys view us as soul containers, right? He said that he was reading the documents and they view us as containers. And then you have someone like Tom DeLonge, whether or not you believe everything that he says, he does make an interesting case about the Greys. And Tom will tell you that the Greys, they're basically a synthetic robot, AI driven thing, and they do not have a soul. And the entire reason why they abduct human beings is because they want to hybridize themselves with human beings enough to where they have access to the human soul and the afterlife, because they are smart enough to realize that they're just an AI program and they don't have what we would call the soul. So I just kind of thought about that it's really strange and interesting that this completely isolated, pretty much completely isolated tribe speaks about these entities and describes them like that. It seems a little bit coincidental. And the other kind of really weird connection to the Rakahashi I found was I was looking at many of the UFO cases in Brazil, in particular the one called the Varginha Brazil UFO case. And that one has been likened to being kind of like Brazil's Roswell. So basically you have a town called Varginha, and people start seeing a whole bunch of UFOs. And before you know it, military starts showing up, and the townspeople start seeing these tall entities, these alien beings walking around in the forest. And I did find a episode of Coast to Coast AM with the late Art Bell, where a ufologist named Roger Lear, he went to Varginha, Brazil, and he met with some of the surgeons at the local hospital who said they did the autopsy on these alien bodies. And in this transcript of this interview, they say that the beings in Varginha, Brazil, had 4 fingers and 3 toes. And I think that is a little bit strange to think that those are the exact amount of digits that are specified for the Rakahashi as well. Now, I don't know for sure how many fingers and toes every kind of pop culture gray alien depiction has. I don't think it's always the same, is it? I'm not quite sure, but I think it's very interesting to think what that implies, which is that the Varginha case, these UFOs, these close encounters of the third kind, you're not talking about something from outer space. You're actually more likely talking about something here on Earth, ultra-terrestrial, crypto-terrestrial, possibly that originates from Kurupira, because we know that they are supposed to exist in Kurupira according to the shamans and according to the folklore out there. And it is the place to hide. It's Area 51 security out there. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I do think it is high likelihood. We can only speculate, but I really do think that there could be some kind of underground base out there, potentially government base as well. But yeah, that is the Rakahashi for you. By the way, basically no one has heard of this before outside of the Czech Republic, because Jaroslav Mores, no one ever translated his books and released them to the international audience. So all this stuff, hopefully you guys enjoy it, because not many people know about it yet. But if you are interested and want to know more, obviously check out my book, but please also look up Jaroslav Mores, because he was an absolute genius, an incredible writer and researcher as well.
Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that deep conversation you crave. But just a quick reminder, if you might be interested in snagging some gear for this show, Bizarre Encounters, or any of your favorite creatures or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs with new drops regularly, and t-shirts for the low price of $15.68 plus shipping. Check out the link to the store down in the show description. And now let's get back into it. Well, man, you fucking laid it out like I couldn't even ask for more detail, man. You've connected so many different weird stories that I haven't heard before, and I can't thank you enough for bringing some exclusive stories too towards the end there. And on top of that, man, talk about perfect timing. We didn't even plan it, and we're around the time that Jurassic Park is starting to come back up again. So dude, talk about two birds, one stone, man. Hopefully, a few people end up checking out your books just off of an interest in Jurassic Park. And if people were interested in possibly coming and finding your books, where again can people come and find them at, man?
Yeah, just Amazon, and you can look up my name, Ben Tejada-Ingram, or you can search for my new book. It's called The Mysteries of Kurupira, Kurupira. And yeah, I would be very grateful to anyone who wants to look that up. Yeah.
And I'll make sure I include that link down in the show description so everybody can find the book quick and easy, because I definitely recommend checking it out. I might have to get a copy for myself because I definitely want to read some more into this. And I can't let you go, of course, without doing some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom that you might want to bestow on the listeners today, man, what might it be?
Interesting. Okay. Words of wisdom. Yeah, just maybe a good thing to emphasize is that when you're talking about these lost worlds, it sounds all just hocus pocus or fictional, but one thing I like to talk about is in the 1990s, researchers in Vietnam, for the first time ever, were able to go and study a certain area of the jungle that no one had ever been to before. And they were like calling it the Lost World at the time, of course. And these guys go into Vietnam, and they found at least 20 new species, including a very strange creature called the Vu Quang ox. And some people also call this the Vietnam unicorn, because it is a very kind of large animal that looks like a deer that has these huge horns, but it's not a deer. It's a member of the bovine family. And it has very weird stripes and coloration. And prior to this happening in the 90s, this was a large, very large animal creature out there that was complete myth. In fact, no one even really knew it existed. And so I like to think if that can happen, that kind of thing can happen all over the world. And let's not forget about so-called Lazarus species like the coelacanth, the fish from the age of the dinosaurs that they found swimming around a couple years ago, or another one called the bush dog in South America, which they said was extinct for hundreds of thousands of years. And they found one alive pretty recently. So, yeah, I just want to emphasize that we think we might know everything about the world around us, but just because we have explored it or taken satellite photography or because it's on Google Earth doesn't mean anyone has ever been there or anyone knows or understands what is happening there. So, yes, there are still places out there left to discover and explore. So hopefully people will keep on looking into it.
Say never let the mystery and exploration die, man, because that's one of the main components of the human spirit. If we if we lose things to be able to explore and discover, then we're losing a key principle to ourselves and our growth as a species.
And that's another thing, man. Like, don't let anyone tell you that something isn't real. Like, I get a lot of it. Like, people are going to tell some of the skeptics out there will tell you there's no possibility there's a dinosaur. There's no such thing as UFOs. There's no such thing as aliens. Like, I just have the mindset now, if anyone tells you something as a fact, but it's about something unexplained, they're 100% have proven they don't actually know. Because when it comes to any kind of unexplained phenomenon, anyone who thinks they know for a fact, they don't know at all, in my opinion. And so don't let people tell you something isn't real or can't be real, because the fact of the matter is we're making new discoveries every single day. And I just don't trust anyone who tells you they know anything for a fact anymore.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, man. You can't because there's just so much information now, man, that unless you even if you see it for yourself, man, it's like you can't even necessarily believe that anymore. Like we've gotten to that point with information, but man, I appreciate you making the time to come on today, man. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I like the way that you research. I love all of the finite details that you hit with your research, and hopefully, man, we'll make it a lot sooner than later. As far as next time you come on the show, because I don't want to hopefully go this far without a gap, man, because we definitely get into some good conversation along the way, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you again for having me on. I truly appreciate the opportunity once again. Yes, it's been awesome.
If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to show some love, I'd definitely appreciate it if you guys left a review or rating for the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcatcher you happen to use. Your continued support is what makes the show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help the show grow and improve. And if you know anyone who would enjoy today's episode, share it with a friend. Grassroots support from listeners like you guys is exactly how the show grows, so thank you. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I'm the most active on. You guys can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is available up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is through the hotline. You guys can either text or call that, whatever happens to be easier. And that number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys didn't catch that, it is available down in the show notes. And if you guys got some free time, don't forget to go and check out our awesome friends of the community and our friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, Oregon-ite, and Sticker Mule, with some additional discounts and credits available. More information on that is also available down in those show notes. And every single thing that I mentioned throughout the show is all available off the link tree, which again is also available off those show notes. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with the mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality.